The amethyst sky of Nexus Prime stretched endlessly above the crystalline spires of the Galactic Council headquarters. Ambassador Jake Morrison stared through the transparent walls of his office, watching the streams of spacecraft weaving through the city's skyways. After 50 years of humanity's integration into the galactic community, the view still captivated him, though the wonder had long since been tainted by reality. "Another denied petition?" Commander Lisa White asked as she entered, her uniform's insignia catching the light from the three suns hanging low on the horizon. Morrison nodded, sliding the rejection notice across his desk. "The seventh this cycle. The Council refuses to consider our proposal for equal representation in the Outer Rim Development Committee." "Typical," White muttered, her fingers drumming against the metallic surface. "Director Thompson's transmission is scheduled in 10 minutes. She mentioned something about significant developments." The ambassador straightened his formal attire, adorned with Earth's emblem, a simple blue sphere that, despite humanity's technological contributions, commanded little respect among the older Council races. "Perhaps good news for once." White's laugh was hollow. "When has the Council ever given us good news, Jake?" The communication chamber was sterile and white, like most of the Council architecture, designed to intimidate with its vastness, to remind visitors of their insignificance. The holographic projector hummed to life, and Director Carol Thompson's image materialized, her expression uncharacteristically solemn. "Ambassador, Commander," she greeted with a curt nod. "The Security Council has reached a decision. Operation Silent Moon is a go, effective immediately." Morrison felt his pulse quicken. "You're certain?" "Absolutely," Thompson replied, her voice steady. "All human citizens, delegates, and military personnel are to withdraw from Council space within the next 48 hours. The barrier will activate precisely at 600 Universal Time." White's eyes widened. "All of us? Even maintenance crews on critical infrastructure?" "Everyone," Thompson confirmed. "Our departure must be absolute. The simulation models are clear. Anything less would compromise the operation's effectiveness." Morrison exhaled slowly, 50 years of diplomatic frustration culminating in this moment. "And the secondary measures?" "Dr. Amy Rodriguez's team is ready. All systems are in place. The alternatives have been distributed to our allies outside Council jurisdiction." "The Council will panic," White observed, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. Thompson's hologram smiled thinly. "That's precisely the point, Commander. Humanity has endured second-class status long enough. It's time they discovered what the galaxy looks like without us." The transmission ended, leaving Morrison and White in momentary silence. 5 decades of planning, of careful positioning, of enduring the Council's condescension, all leading to this gambit. "I'll coordinate the evacuation protocol," White said finally. "The transport fleet is already positioned throughout Council space." Morrison nodded, turning to gaze once more at the crystalline cityscape. "By this time tomorrow, there won't be a single human in this sector of space." "Do you think they'll notice right away?" White asked. The ambassador's laugh was genuine this time. "Oh, they'll notice. The question is whether their pride will let them admit it." "Ugh." High Chancellor Vextal's tendrils quivered with annoyance as reports flooded his console. The Deltan representative, usually a model of composure, was visibly agitated. "Chancellor, I demand an explanation," Ambassador Yeltar insisted, his crystalline form reflecting fractured light across the Council chamber. "The human delegation has abruptly withdrawn from our trade negotiations. Their transport vessels are departing en masse from every station in Council space." Vextal dismissed the concern with a wave of his upper appendage. "The humans are prone to theatrical displays when they don't get their way. Their ambassador submitted yet another equality petition last cycle. Undoubtedly, this is some primitive pressure tactic." Keshara, representative of the Andromedans, joined the conversation, her luminescent skin pulsing with concern. With respect, Chancellor, this appears more coordinated than a mere protest. Our intelligence reports indicate that every human military vessel has been recalled to their solar system. Every one. And, Vextal's voice dripped with disdain, let them sulk behind their planetary defenses. The Council survived millennia before humans stumbled into space. Their absence will hardly be noticed. Throck, the massive representative of the hegemony, rumbled from his gravity-adjusted platform. The maintenance crews on Kepler Station have departed without replacement. 3 critical systems are already showing degradation. For the first time, Vextal felt a flicker of concern. Surely there are protocols for such contingencies. The humans were supposed to be the contingency, Throck responded flatly. They've maintained those systems since the station's reconstruction. Vextal's communicator pulsed with an urgent message. He glanced at it dismissively, then froze. What do you mean, unable to establish contact with Sol system? The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Deploy a reconnaissance probe, he ordered. Something is interfering with our communications network. 3 hours later, the probe's findings threw the council into chaos. A previously undetected energy barrier now surrounded the entirety of human space, rendering it completely inaccessible to council vessels or communications. Impossible! Vextal thundered. Our sensors would have detected the construction of such technology. Unless it was already there, Kishara observed quietly. Dormant, perhaps for decades, waiting to be activated. The Chancellor's tendrils twisted in agitation. What exactly are they playing at? They cannot possibly believe this isolation will benefit them. Perhaps, Throck suggested, we should be asking what they believe it will cost us. The answer began manifesting within days. Kepler Station, once the crown jewel of Council commerce in the Orion Arm, descended into chaos as automated systems failed, one after another. Climate control fluctuated wildly in the agricultural sectors, ruining crop shipments destined for 12 different worlds. The gravitational stabilizers malfunctioned during peak trading hours, sending merchandise and traders alike floating through the market concourses. On Fort Liberty, the Council's premier military installation, weapon systems suddenly required recalibration. Defense grids powered down unexpectedly, and the command center's translation matrix began rendering all communications in an obscure human dialect called Pig Latin. By the end of the first week, the pattern was unmistakable. Every piece of technology that had been maintained, upgraded, or even touched by human engineers was deteriorating, not catastrophically, but in a manner precisely calculated to cause maximum frustration with minimum lethality. They sabotaged us, Vextal declared during an emergency council session, deliberately and methodically. Not precisely, Kishara corrected, reviewing the technical assessments. The systems are failing because they were designed to require human maintenance. Our engineers report finding authentication protocols that only respond to human biological signatures. That's preposterous, Vextal dismissed. Why would we allow such dependencies to be built into our infrastructure? Throck's laughter rumbled like distant thunder. Because, Chancellor, no one bothered to read the technical specifications the humans submitted. We were too busy relegating them to subordinate positions while happily utilizing their innovations. The council chamber erupted in argument, accusations flying between the representatives of 100 worlds. As the debate raged, a junior aide approached Vextal with trembling steps. Chancellor, the aide whispered, we've received reports from the agricultural worlds. The automated harvesting systems, the ones that supply food to nearly 30% of council planets. They're shutting down. Vextal felt a cold dread settle in his core. The council had grown complacent, outsourcing crucial infrastructure to the supposedly subservient humans. Now, their absence threatened to unravel the very fabric of interstellar civilization. Contact the humans, he ordered. Whatever concessions they want, we'll discuss them. The aide's expression fell. Sir, We've tried. Every communication directed at Earth is blocked by the barrier. We can't get through. As the implications sank in, a new alert sounded. The chamber's main display activated, showing a transmission originating from beyond Council space. Director Carol Thompson's face appeared on the screen, her expression neutral yet somehow radiating satisfaction. "Greetings, Galactic Council," she began. "I trust by now you've noticed our departure. After 50 years of second-class citizenship despite our contributions to your civilization, humanity has unanimously decided to withdraw from the Council and all associated treaties." Vextal surged forward. "This is outrageous! You cannot simply—" "We already have," Thompson interrupted smoothly. "The energy barrier surrounding our system will remain in place indefinitely. However, this message isn't merely to inform you of our departure. It's to extend an invitation." The chamber fell silent. Humanity has established the Independent Systems Alliance, in partnership with the Valdari Federation, the Centauri Collective, and several dozen formerly marginalized civilizations. Unlike the Council, our alliance is founded on principles of genuine equality and mutual respect. Thompson's expression hardened slightly. "The technologies your worlds have come to depend on, the atmospheric processors, gravitational stabilizers, advanced propulsion systems, all remain available through alliance trade agreements. The choice is yours. Continue struggling with deteriorating infrastructure, or engage with us as equals." The transmission ended, leaving the Council in stunned silence. "The Valdari," Yeltar whispered incredulously. "They've been isolationists for centuries." "And the Centauri rejected Council membership 3 times, Kashara added, her luminescence dimming with concern. Vextal's tendrils coiled tightly against his body. "This changes nothing. The humans have overplayed their hand. No civilization can survive in isolation, especially not one as young as theirs." But even as he spoke, notifications poured in from across Council space. Planetary governments inquiring about the Independent Systems Alliance and requesting permission to open diplomatic channels. The exodus had begun. Beyond the barrier, aboard the command ship New Horizon, Director Thompson watched the data streams with satisfaction. Commander White stood at her side, monitoring the fallout across Council space. 17 non-Council worlds have already requested Alliance membership, White reported. And 3 Council members have sent unofficial envoys to our outposts near the Valdari border. Thompson nodded approvingly. "And the Catherine Hives movements?" "Exactly as predicted. They're mobilizing along the Vextal Confederation's unprotected border. Without human military support, their defense grid is operating at 60% capacity at best. Unfortunate but necessary," Thompson mused. "The Hive was always going to exploit any perceived weakness. We couldn't account for every variable." Dr. Amy Rodriguez entered the command center, her team of scientists trailing behind her. "Phase 2 is ready, Director. The replacement systems are fully operational and have been distributed to our allies." "Excellent work, Doctor," Thompson acknowledged. "And the barrier integrity?" 100%, Rodriguez confirmed. Council probes continue their attempts, but the barrier adapts faster than they can analyze it. We can maintain this isolation for decades if necessary. Thompson turned to the viewport, gazing at the shimmering energy field visible at the edge of their solar system. "It won't take decades. Vextal's pride might be substantial, but the Andromeda Coalition won't tolerate economic disruption for long." "And if they attempt military action?" White asked. "They won't," Thompson replied confidently. "Not after the Catherine Hive makes their move. The Council will be too busy managing that crisis to worry about forcing us back into the fold." Rodriguez seemed troubled. "Are we certain using the Hive as a distraction is ethical? Their expansion will cause casualties." "The Valdari fleet is already positioned to intervene," Thompson assured her. "This isn't about punishing the Council, Doctor. It's about reshaping a flawed system that has marginalized too many civilizations for too long. As if on cue, the communications officer announced an incoming transmission from War Archive Gra of the Valdari Federation. The War Archive's imposing visage filled the main screen. His exoskeletal features arranged in what humans had learned was a gesture of respect. Director Thompson, the Catherine Hive has crossed the Vextal border, as anticipated. Their advance has already overwhelmed 3 defensive outposts. Your response? Thompson inquired. Our fleet will engage within the hour, with Centauri support vessels providing logistical assistance. The Council will observe that we protect even those who have not yet joined our alliance. Thompson nodded appreciatively. A powerful message, Warrakif. Earth stands ready to provide technological support as needed. After the transmission ended, White turned to Thompson with a raised eyebrow. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Not the suffering, Thompson clarified. But watching a stagnant, prejudiced institution finally face consequences? Yes, Commander. I find a certain satisfaction in that. The director's gaze returned to the tactical display, where Council space glowed with increasing distress signals. 50 years of planning, of enduring their condescension while we quietly built our alternatives. Now, we'll see if they're capable of change, or if their empire collapses under the weight of its own arrogance. Chancellor Vextal stared in disbelief at the tactical display. The Catherine Hive's forces had pushed nearly 100 light-years into Confederation territory, overwhelming planetary defenses that suddenly seemed inadequate without human military support. How is this possible? He demanded, tendrils lashing in agitation. The defense grid should have contained their advance at the Proxima sector. Admiral Throck shook his massive head. The grid's targeting systems are operating at minimal capacity. The human engineers integrated their own biometric authentication. Without them, the automated responses are basic at best. Then send in the fleet. The fleet is engaged along 3 different fronts, Kishara interjected, her luminescence pulsing with stress patterns. And our supply chains are compromised. The agricultural worlds can't deliver provisions without functioning harvesting systems. Vextal's rage built like a gathering storm. Those treacherous humans planned this all along. They've deliberately weakened us for the Hive to destroy. A junior officer approached cautiously. Chancellor, we're receiving a transmission from the Valdari Warfleet. They're engaging the Hive along our border. The Valdari. Vextal's confusion was evident. Why would isolationists intervene in Council affairs? The main screen activated, showing a massive battle unfolding near the Proxima sector. Valdari warships, recognizable by their distinctive curved hulls, intercepted Hive vessels with devastating precision. Alongside them flew smaller craft of Centauri design, providing support fire and defensive countermeasures. They're driving the Hive back, Kishara observed with obvious surprise. Another officer reported, Chancellor, we're receiving transmissions from dozens of systems near the conflict zone. They're thanking the Alliance for protection. What alliance? Vextal demanded. The Independent Systems Alliance, the officer clarified. The one the humans mentioned. According to these communications, over 30 worlds have already signed their charter. Vextal felt his authority slipping away with each report. The Council, which had stood unchallenged for millennia, was crumbling in a matter of weeks without human support. This cannot stand, he declared. Prepare a fleet to breach the human barrier. Whatever it takes, whatever the cost, we will force them to return and restore our systems. Admiral Throck's expression darkened. With respect, Chancellor, we lack the resources for such an operation. The Hive's attack has stretched our forces thin, and many of our advanced weapon systems are among those failing without human maintenance. Then, what do you suggest? Vextal's voice rose dangerously. That we surrender to these upstart primates? I suggest, Kishara interjected calmly, that we recognize reality. The humans built dependencies into our infrastructure because we allowed them to, because we underestimated them. Now they've demonstrated leverage we never imagined they possessed. Throck nodded in agreement. The humans have outmaneuvered us completely. They've isolated themselves while simultaneously offering an alternative to our authority. Even now, I've received reports of council members sending unofficial delegations to Alliance outposts. Traitors, Vextal hissed. Pragmatists, Kashara corrected. The Alliance offers solutions to problems we suddenly cannot solve, and their intervention against the Hive demonstrates they're willing to protect even non-members, something we've failed to do effectively. As they spoke, the tactical display updated, showing Hive forces in full retreat before the combined might of the Valdari and Centauri fleets. The victory should have been cause for celebration, but instead hung over the council chamber like an indictment. We must adapt, Throck concluded solemnly, or we will collapse. Commander White's shuttle docked with the Alliance flagship Harmony, newly commissioned as the mobile headquarters for diplomatic operations. After 3 months of isolation, humanity was finally emerging, not as supplicants returning to the Council, but as founding members of a new galactic order. Ambassador Morrison greeted her at the airlock, his diplomatic attire now bearing the insignia of the Alliance, a spiral galaxy, with each arm represented equally. Quite the turnout, White observed, gesturing toward the viewports where hundreds of vessels from dozens of civilizations had gathered for the inaugural Alliance summit. Morrison nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. 217 worlds represented, including, rather surprisingly, a delegation from the Andromeda Coalition. White's eyebrows rose. Kashara came herself? Along with representatives from 16 other council members, Morrison confirmed. Not officially. Of course, Vextal still refuses to acknowledge our legitimacy, but they're here as independent observers. As they walked through the Harmony's corridors, White noted the diversity of beings preparing for the summit, species that had been marginalized by council policies for centuries, now standing as equals in the Alliance framework. I never thought I'd see a Deltan and a Centauri collaborating on anything, she remarked, watching the two traditionally antagonistic species working together on a shared console. Necessity breeds unusual partnerships, Morrison replied. Dr. Rodriguez's technology distribution program has been remarkably effective. Worlds that never had access to advanced council systems are suddenly operating at technological parity. The summit chamber was a marvel of human design. Unlike the intimidating vastness of council architecture, the space was arranged in concentric circles, ensuring every delegation could see and be seen equally. No raised platforms, no privileged positions, physically embodying the Alliance's founding principle. Director Thompson was already present, engaged in conversation with War Archive Gra and several other founding members. She acknowledged White and Morrison with a nod as they took their positions. 3 months, White mused quietly. 3 months since Operation Silent Moon, and the galactic landscape is unrecognizable. Not entirely by our design, Morrison admitted. The Catherine Hive's aggression accelerated matters significantly. But we anticipated it, White pointed out. Thompson's models predicted exactly how they would exploit the power vacuum. And the Valdari's intervention sent precisely the message we hoped it would. Morrison agreed. That the Alliance protects even those who haven't joined. A stark contrast to the Council's selective security guarantees. The chamber quieted as Thompson took the central position, her voice projecting clearly without the need for the ostentatious amplification the Council preferred. Representatives of the Independent Systems Alliance, honored observers, I welcome you to this historic gathering, she began. 3 months ago, humanity withdrew from a system that had failed not only us, but countless civilizations across our galaxy. Today, we stand together, not to replicate the Council's mistakes, but to forge something better. As she spoke, White's attention was drawn to the Andromeda delegation. Kashara watched Thompson with unmistakable interest, her luminescence patterns suggesting deep consideration. The alliance is founded on three principles, Thompson continued. Equality of representation, regardless of technological development or military strength. Mutual defense, extended even to non-members in times of crisis. And open exchange of knowledge, without the artificial restrictions the Council imposed to maintain hierarchies of power. Murmurs of approval rippled through the chamber. Already, our combined efforts have repelled the Catherine Hive's expansion, stabilized the trade routes in the Orion Arm, and restored agricultural production to pre-crisis levels. What the Council claimed would lead to chaos has instead fostered unprecedented cooperation. Thompson's expression grew solemn. But our work has just begun. The transition from Council dominance to a more equitable system will not be without challenges. Old rivalries and prejudices will not disappear overnight. Yet I believe the framework we establish here will prove more resilient, precisely because it acknowledges these difficulties instead of suppressing them. As the summit proceeded, working groups formed to address specific challenges: defense coordination, trade standardization, technological exchange protocols. White found herself assigned to security operations, working alongside former adversaries to develop protection strategies for Alliance space. During a brief recess, she encountered Kashara in one of the observation lounges, the Andromedan representative standing alone, watching the assembled fleet through the viewport. "Commander White," Kashara acknowledged, "your alliance appears to be thriving." White inclined her head respectfully. "It's no longer just our alliance. The majority of members now come from outside human space." "Indeed." Kashara's luminescence shifted in patterns, suggesting thoughtfulness. "I confess, I underestimated your species. We all did." "That was the point," White replied candidly. "For 50 years, we allowed the Council to believe we were content with our subordinate status, all while Dr. Rodriguez and her team developed alternative technologies, while our diplomats built relationships with non-Council worlds, while we quietly integrated those essential dependencies into your infrastructure. A strategy worthy of the Andromedans," Kashara observed with what seemed like reluctant admiration. "Patient, methodical, comprehensive." White smiled slightly. "We learned from the best. Your people have manipulated Council politics for millennia. And yet we never imagined being outmaneuvered so completely." Kashara turned from the viewport to face White directly. "Chancellor Vextall still believes he can restore the old order." "And you?" The Andromedan's luminescence pulsed once, brightly. "I believe adaptation is the fundamental law of survival. The Council failed to adapt. It deserved its fate." "Is that why you're here, to adapt?" "I am here because 17 worlds in the Andromeda Coalition face system failures within the next cycle," Kashara admitted frankly. "Pride makes poor fuel for planetary life support." White nodded understanding. "The Alliance welcomes all who accept its principles, even former Council leaders. Even those who once dismissed humanity as primitive upstarts." "Especially those," White confirmed. "This isn't about revenge, Ambassador. It's about building something better." Kashara's luminescence shifted again, a pattern White recognized as the Andromedan equivalent of a thoughtful sigh. "The Council has stood for over 14,000 years, yet it may not survive 14 months without human support." "That rather proves our point, doesn't it?" White observed. "A truly resilient system wouldn't collapse from the withdrawal of a single species, particularly one it claimed was insignificant." Before Kashara could respond, an alert sounded throughout the ship. Both their communicators activated simultaneously. "This is Director Thompson. All security personnel to stations. We've received word that a Council battle group is approaching Alliance space." White exchanged glances with Kashara, whose luminescence had shifted to alarm patterns. "Vextall," the Andromedan said simply. "It appears the Chancellor has made his choice," White replied grimly, already moving toward the command center. The Council battle group materialized at the edge of Alliance space. 12 capital ships, including Vextal's flagship, the Indomitable. A formidable force under normal circumstances, but visibly diminished by the system's failures plaguing Council technology. From the command center of the Harmony, Thompson watched the tactical display with calculated calm. Status of defensive positions. Valdari Warfleet is in position. White reported. Centauri interceptors deployed. Our own vessels are maintaining barrier coverage around vulnerable systems. And our observers confirm the Council fleet is operating at reduced capacity, Morrison added. Their targeting systems are compromised, shield harmonics fluctuating. They're struggling to maintain formation. Thompson nodded, unsurprised. Open a channel! The main screen activated, revealing Chancellor Vextal's command chamber. The Council leader's tendrils writhed with barely contained fury. Director Thompson, he began without preamble. This charade has gone on long enough. Your rebellion has destabilized the galaxy and emboldened threats like the Catherine Hive. The Council demands your immediate return to proper authority. Thompson's expression remained neutral. Chancellor, there is no rebellion. Humanity exercised its sovereign right to withdraw from voluntary association, as have the 217 worlds now comprising the Alliance. Treaties cannot simply be abandoned, Vextal thundered. Treaties made under duress, with unequal benefits, and systematic discrimination, Thompson countered. History suggests otherwise, but I haven't contacted you to debate political theory. I'm offering a final opportunity to avoid unnecessary conflict. Vextal's tendrils coiled tightly. You threaten the Council. I state facts, Thompson corrected. Your fleet is operating at approximately 40% capacity due to system failures. The Alliance Defense Force outnumbers you 3-1, and every moment you spend in this confrontation, more Council worlds are discussing membership in our organization. She leaned forward slightly. This isn't a battle you can win, Chancellor. Not militarily, not economically, not politically. The question is whether you're willing to sacrifice lives to postpone the inevitable. For a moment, Vextal seemed prepared to order an attack regardless of consequences. Then, a subordinate approached, whispering urgently in his ear equivalent. The Chancellor's expression shifted, disbelief giving way to resignation. The Andromeda Coalition, he said flatly. They've voted to join your alliance, effective immediately. Thompson inclined her head, having anticipated this development. A wise decision. One I hope the remaining Council members will consider carefully. You've destroyed everything, Vextal accused, his voice hollow. Millennia of order, of stability. Of stagnation, Thompson interjected firmly. Of artificial hierarchies. Of institutionalized prejudice. What we've destroyed was already failing. Chancellor, what we're building will serve all species, not merely the privileged few. She gestured to the assembled representatives on the Harmony's bridge, dozens of species working in harmony, including many former Council members. This is the future. You're welcome to join it, as an equal partner, not as a superior authority. Vextal stared silently, his once imposing presence diminished by circumstance. Without another word, he terminated the transmission. They're withdrawing, White reported, as the Council vessels began turning away from Alliance space. Returning to what remains of their territory. Thompson nodded, satisfaction evident in her expression. And so ends the Galactic Council, not with an apocalyptic war, but with the simple recognition of a changed reality. Morrison approached, datapad in hand. The Andromeda Coalition's application has been formally submitted. With their 17 worlds, Alliance membership now exceeds 230 sovereign systems. And Council membership? Thompson inquired. 11, Morrison confirmed. Down from over 300 at the beginning of Operation Silent Moon. The exodus is nearly complete. Thompson turned to the viewport, watching as the Council battle group disappeared into faster-than-light travel. Prepare a delegation to Nexus Prime. When Vextal's government collapses, and it will, within days, we should be ready to assist with the transition. You believe they'll accept our help? White asked skeptically. They won't have a choice, Thompson replied. But we'll offer it without conditions, without superiority, without the mistakes the Council made with us. That's the difference between their system and ours, and why ours will endure. 1 year after Operation Silent Moon, the crystalline spires of Nexus Prime gleamed under the light of 3 suns. But where once they had housed the authoritarian chambers of the Galactic Council, they now contained the open forums of the Galactic Federation of Independent Worlds, the evolution of the Alliance as it incorporated the final remnants of the old order. Ambassador Morrison stood at the observation deck of the new Federation headquarters, marveling at how much had changed. Beside him, somewhat improbably, stood former Chancellor Vextal, now simply the representative of the Vextal Confederation, one member among equals. Still adjusting, Morrison asked, noting the former Chancellor's subdued demeanor. It is different, Vextal acknowledged. His once imperious tendrils now held in the cultural posture of respectful conversation. The Federation operates with far more discussion than the Council permitted. Democracy often appears chaotic, Morrison agreed, but it's more resilient for involving all voices. Below them, representatives of over 500 worlds moved through the concourses, engaged in the messy, vital work of cooperative governance. The Catherine Hive had signed peace accords. The trade routes flourished with unprecedented volume. And technological innovations, once hoarded by Council powers, spread rapidly through open exchange programs. Humanity could have dominated, Vextal observed quietly. When our systems failed, when our defenses collapsed, you could have established yourselves as the new authority. Morrison shook his head. That would have merely replaced one flawed system with another. Director Thompson understood that true stability comes from genuine equality, not imposed hierarchies. Your director, Vextal mused. She outmaneuvered the collective wisdom of the Council's 14,000-year history. She recognized something the Council forgot, Morrison replied. That diversity of biology, of perspective, of approach, is strength, not weakness. Every species brings unique contributions. Suppressing any diminishes the whole. A notification chimed, indicating the Federation's General Assembly was about to begin. Representatives from hundreds of worlds made their way to the chamber, a space deliberately designed with equal seating for all, in stark contrast to the Council's hierarchical arrangement. Director Thompson took her position, not elevated above the others, but standing among them. Beside her stood Wararkeef Gra, Kashara of the Andromedans, and representatives from dozens of civilizations that had once been marginalized under Council rule. 1 year ago, she began, her voice carrying through the chamber without technological amplification. Humanity withdrew from a system that had failed to recognize our worth, and the worth of countless other species. Today, we gather not to celebrate that withdrawal, but what we have built in its place. She gestured to the assembled representatives. The Federation now encompasses over 500 sovereign worlds. Our combined scientific knowledge has advanced more in 1 year of open exchange than in the previous century of restricted access. Our economic cooperation has raised living standards across 78% of member systems. Thompson's gaze swept the chamber, meeting Vextal's eyes momentarily before continuing. But our greatest achievement isn't measured in statistics. It's the fundamental shift in how we relate to one another. No longer as superiors and subordinates, but as partners in a shared future. From his position, Morrison could see Dr. Rodriguez among the Earth delegation, her team of scientists now integrated with experts from across the galaxy. Commander White stood with the Federation's Unified Defense Command, former adversaries, now coordinating joint security operations. We face challenges still, Thompson acknowledged. Cultural misunderstandings, historical grievances, disparities in development. But unlike the Council, we address these issues openly, not suppressing them beneath a veneer of imposed harmony. She straightened, her expression resolute. The old order believed stability required hierarchy. We have proven otherwise. True stability comes from respecting the inherent worth of every civilization, every perspective, every contribution. As the assembly proceeded, Morrison found himself reflecting on the 50-year journey that had led to this moment. The patient accumulation of leverage, the careful cultivation of allies, the strategic withdrawal that had revealed the Council's fundamental weakness. Was it worth it? Vextall asked quietly, seeming to follow Morrison's thoughts. The years of enduring Council prejudice, the risk of isolation, the possibility of conflict. Morrison considered the question seriously, watching as former enemies engaged in productive collaboration across the chamber floor. Look around you, he answered finally. A galaxy transformed, not through conquest or coercion, but through the simple insistence on mutual respect. Yes, Chancellor, it was worth every moment. Above them, through the transparent ceiling of the Federation chamber, the amethyst sky of Nexus Prime stretched endlessly, no longer a symbol of exclusive authority, but the shared heritage of all who called the galaxy home. The new era had begun,